So I'm out here tonight spinning a few wrenches on the BLT. Thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on the rear section here. Last time I left you, I had flipped the rear end, putting the axle on top of the springs. And that's going to work out a whole lot better for me, I think. Although it's going to be quite a bit lower than what I wanted it to be. And I can correct that. Probably what I'll end up doing is re-arching those springs a little bit. I really don't want to put, I could put longer shackles on it too. I really don't want to do that. I was trying to keep all the shackles and stuff the same. Those are typical Model A, Model T, early Ford type shackles, and you can get bushings for them. Any hot rod supply house has got bushings for them, pretty common. So I wanted to keep that kind of the same all the way around. Just to give you a little recap on what's going on here. Those are Model T springs like you'd find on a T-bucket. So I just decided to run parallel leafs back here in the back. And those are from Speedway Motors. That's their just the typical T-bucket front spring. Unpacked them and took one spring off, so they've got 3 springs right now on each side. And like to further recap right here, Model A rear frame section. And I curved this around the back of the cab. The wood for the bed will slide right up under that lip, just like that all the way around. And probably just cut that out of one sheet of plywood or whatever I can find. You can see right here the kick up and the brackets I made for the front spring hangers. I just made this spreader bar right here mostly just to hold the frame rails together while I was putting the thing together. And I welded this piece of 1-inch angle on the back too to hold everything square. These brackets on the side, I don't know if you can see that, it ties into the original holes on the frame. I don't know what was mounted there originally, but I just utilized those holes and made that spreader bar to fit in there, and it'll end up staying. And I think that's going to be a mount for my upper shock eyes. So I've been scrounging through my scrap parts, junk pile out there, and come up with some U-bolts I think that'll work. Those I think came off of an S10. I think those come off of Oscar over there on the back when I put the lowering blocks on it. So I keep everything. I don't throw anything away. These shocks, I'm not going to use the shocks, obviously, because they're junk. But I think I'm going to take these lower mounts off. And here's some more brackets for the U-bolts. These I think came off of these and those I think came off of a F100. Here's another variation of that same thing. These are made for knee action shocks, and of course these are tube shocks. So I think I'm going to try to run some shorty tube shocks on the back. So I'm going to try to liberate those brackets from those shocks. Probably have to apply a little heat on those bad boys. I'm going to try to get those off, and we'll bolt the rear end in. Also, the rear shackle mounts, another item from Speedway Motors. The spring pads are 1 3/4 inch wide spring pads for a trailer. So the early Ford stuff is all 1 3/4 inch, and those mount the axle to the spring, and they're the proper width for the early Ford springs. So I'm going to dig into this stuff and see what I can get done. Oh, I wanted to show you one more thing right here. Quick little tip for you. These were really grungy with a lot of dirt and a little bit of rust and stuff. And those are metric, which I kind of don't really like putting those on this car. Everything else on the car be standard, but you know, the price was right on them. And I don't typically keep tapping dies for metric stuff around here. So here's a quick little tip to clean those threads up. I just stopped at the local Rural King, picked up a metric nut right there, took a little notch out of it, angled, and if you just run that over the threads first, cleans all the debris and loose rust and stuff out. And just keep you know, your favorite penetrating oil or WD-40 or whatever, keep squirting that on there, and it cleans all that corrosion and stuff out. And then you're ready to run the regular nuts on there. So there's a good little tech tip for you. So I'm gonna get these shocks liberated from those brackets and see if I can get this rear end mounted in there, at least temporarily. It will eventually have to come back out. The brake drums are empty. There's no brakes in there right now. And I will pull the chunk out, change the oil in it, inspect the gears and everything. All of my years of building cars and trucks, I've always tried to use an 8 or 9 inch Ford rear end. This one is out of a Maverick. Those are the perfect width for 20s and 30s cars. They just work out perfectly, and they're easy to work on. You can just drop that chunk out in just a few minutes. They were actually known as the poor man's quick change rear end at the drag strip, because you can have a set of gears set aside. If you want to change the gear ratio, you can just drop one chunk out and have another chunk put in there in just a few minutes. Pretty neat. So out of all the ones that I've used in the past, I have never had a bad chunk in any of them. I've had to replace bearings once, and I usually replace the seals in them and stuff. But I usually just go through there, freshen everything up, change the oil in it, change the seals if it needs it, bearings, and just check everything out. Rebuild the brakes. I rebuild the brakes on everything that I've built in the past, so this one won't be any different. So right now I've got the weight of the frame supported on this concrete block. I've got the wheels and tires on the rear end, and that was supporting the axle, and I bolted the springs into the frame, and then I just picked up on the frame until it met the axle, and I shimmed it up accordingly right here with some blocks of metal right there. Just to hold everything in place, I'm going to go ahead and get the U-bolts on there and clamp that axle in place, and then the weight of the car will be on the suspension. So I've got this bracket mounted in the vise right here, and normally I would use some penetrating oil on that because that is really crusty. I would let that soak in if I had time for a day or two, but I don't have time right now, so I'm going to do the next best thing. I'm going to apply a little heat to that bad boy. Got my torch handy right here, and when you're anytime you're working with a torch or anything like that, be sure to have yourself a fire extinguisher handy, and be sure to use proper eye protection. I'm using a shade 5 lens right now. I'm going to give that just a little bit of a settling, and a little oxygen there to get that down to a neutral flame. And we'll start applying just a little bit of heat to that until it gets to be just a kind of a dull red. It's amazing what just a little bit of heat will do. Already got that broke loose. I'm gonna have just a little bit more heat to that. It's as easy as that. There we go. That's what I got to work with. So I've got all that mounted in there now. Looks pretty good. You can see, well, if I can get the shot of the camera out of the way, you can see the lower shock mount right there. That may or may not work out, I don't know. The U-bolts worked out nice. There you can see all the mounting hardware. So overall, most of this stuff come out of the scrap pile, so $0 invested. Only thing I've spent so far is the springs, the shackles and the shackle mounts, and obviously I bought the rear end years ago for 25 bucks. Rest of it pretty much came out of the scrap pile, including the frame rails. This piece up here was a divider between a set of double doors from a local church when they were doing a remodel. So this piece of angle, that's some kind of brace that come out of a piece of equipment or something. I can't remember where that came from, but again, it was in the scrap pile. The U-bolts come out of the S10. Most of this stuff, the mounting hardware, those brackets come out of a F100, I think that was. I have a couple of buddies that builds F100s, and those steering boxes are great under traditional hot rods, and the brakes, if you want to update an older Ford, those 53 to 56 Ford F100 brakes work great on traditional hot rods. So I get a lot of that stuff and just put it up, use it to barter with or whatever. So let's put some weight on this thing. There it is. I don't know. I think that's a pretty good amount of spring right there for it. I don't know. Maybe a little stiff. I may end up taking one of those out. I'm gonna probably end up re-arching those anyway, so it will definitely come out again. I can't set the pinion angle on it till I get the rest of the car set up, and I'll have to get the rest of the ride height set up before I can set the pinion angle on it and everything. So, but I accomplished the goal I wanted to do, and that's to get the rear end bolted in there and kind of get the parts laid out that I'm going to use. Get some weight on the rear end, see where it's going to set. And definitely, it's probably going to come back out of there, get those springs re-arched. But I won't have to revisit this for a while. So, till next time, you know what to do. Y'all get out there and build something.